I'm very excited. I already had a first sort of interview with Five Finger Death Punch, and it went so well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to start this virtual thing with you. And I'm only kind of sad that people couldn't. I'm not able to hear our previous conversations because, as pretentious as this might sound, I feel that every time we talk, there's so much meaning and in decent content that we've been talking about and discussing. And I just hope that people would feel the synergy in the dialogue that we usually have, because for me it's so rare to just encounter this with other people, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think, yeah, two things. I think those things are that they can't be contrived. You can't fake something like that.
Yeah.
And I think when it happens because there are two people who are connecting in spirit without any ego. And they're, if you make yourself, if you're comfortable getting uncomfortable, being vulnerable, then you'll sort of bear the fruits of that if someone else is willing to do the same.
Yeah. That's so well said. And I don't know if it's the same with you too, but for me, I'm definitely able to connect with multiple different personalities in a different way.
Yeah.
But to be able to be my true self, the my full personality in front of someone else is such a very rare thing. So it's so satisfying, I guess, to just be able to get to this level of communication with someone else. As I'm feeling that with you, obviously, from the few conversations that we had before. So
that's a good point. I mean, I think that's probably everybody's objective as they go through life in whatever relationships they form, right? It's just to be able to just be yourself, because it's liberating. It's like, being your free spirit. And anytime there's inhibitions, it just mitigates. It feels like it's just such a jumpy thing. And then, you're sort of on alert, and then you start to go, your focus starts to drift to the back of your mind. It's like more you're observing, and then you're sort of determining how to behave, like everything's going through filters, and that's no good.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how, people minds put limitations on our personalities when we're put into this sort of different situation? It's so rare to encounter this feeling where you're just being yourself without overthinking or without complying with different norms and whatever the case might be.
Totally. Formalities. I've always been adverse to formality,
Yeah.
Any sort of structure, I'm like, I deviate from that.
Yeah. Are you able to, freely reach this level of connection with many people, or is it something that you rarely encounter as well?
I think I've been very fortunate in that sense that I've certainly gone through phases of my life where it's been very difficult to do that. Certainly as you're growing up and learning about yourself, along with experiencing others and other people. But I guess I sort of learned long ago, there's no point in being any other way.
Yeah.
So if you just go out there, put yourself out there as you are, you never have to look over your shoulder. You never have to keep any story straight or anything like that.
Yeah.
And people take it or leave it.
Yeah. It's so well said. It's and you're completely right. And it seems like you have such a a mature and objective assessment of who you are, and what sort of quality in terms of connecting with other people you want to achieve. Have you always been like that? Is this like your natural perception of human interaction, or is it something that you've developed throughout the years and throughout your experiences?
That's a great question. Sort of as you were asking it, I was thinking about it because I kind of sensed where you're going. I think one remarkable advantage that I've had in my life is having a twin brother,
Yeah.
Nathan.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't possibly be any closer. It's, imagine having someone there from -9 months old going through every experience with you. So you not only get to, you know, ex- have somebody that you can reflect it, post experience, you can reflect on the conversation or the circumstance. You can reflect and have a conversation, an analytical conversation with. You can also observe that person going through the same situations that you are. So it's sort of like, an accelerated learning curve.
Yeah.
So when we were in high school, we had a funny year where all of our friends turned on us, like a typical high school thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was like, the Leones were toxic for, it's like you couldn't be friends with us for a period of time.
Yeah.
And I think it the character that you just defined uh, probably emerged from that, because when it's sort of like when you hit the sort of bottom, or when you have nothing else to lose,
Yeah.
and you get to a point, it's sort of like it cracks your spirit, and
Mm-hmm.
then you feel exposed, and like, well, now I'm exposed, so everybody knows who or what I am, because I'm at you're rawest and you're most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you just sort of go forge ahead with that, and then having a twin to sort of galvanize that reemergence was incredible.
Wow. It's very funny because honestly, this was the next topic that I really wanted to discuss with you, and I find it really interesting in terms of, your early years and um, in general, what it's like having a twin brother,
Yeah.
uh, because from every perspective, disconnection is something really special. I assume, you know
So what did you say? Which word? Just
it's really special, this connection that you have
the
with,
connection. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. um so how would you describe it? Because I've always been very fascinated just in the idea of having two human beings connected in such a strong way, with such a strong bond.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, when I had an incident a few years back, when I was injured and I was in
Hmm.
a coma,
Hmm.
and the prognosis from the surgeons and the brain guys was, it wasn't looking like I was going to emerge, like I was going to come back from that.
Oh, wow.
A very interesting thing happened there. Nathan, he was very he was devastated, and he was in the waiting room
Hmm.
pacing back and forth while I was in surgery.
Hmm.
It was taking longer than they anticipated. So, they thought, it's arbitrary numbers. They thought it was going to be about a half an hour, the surgery, anyways.
Yeah.
And at about an hour, Nathan was getting really nervous and he started pacing in the waiting room. And then he fainted.
Oh, wow.
And it was the way that he fainted. It wasn't like in a sitcom where they just splash water on your face and you're like, oh, come back.
Yeah.
Like he was out.
Wow.
So they got him on a gurney, and he was just completely exhausted. Curiously, what was simultaneously happening in the operating room, I flatlined.
Wow.
And so then I came back to life. And this is as the neurosurgeon, the head of neurology at UIC, Dr. Sergey Nekrish. He told us there was no that he was really surprised. There was no sort of medical explanation for how I came back to life. But his operating theory was that there was a transference of some subatomic particles that I needed to survive.
Wow.
So I think that's probably the best real life example of how close twins can be. You know?
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, it is. And thank you for sharing this story. Like,
Yeah,
it's just, I think it encaptures I would say, I'm a very analytical person, very science based, but I
yeah.
do believe that there's no better way to describe this than, just a magical occurrence.
Yeah,
It's so
and
fascinating.
magic sort of gets a bad rep in a sort of scientific world, but
Yeah.
science can only prove what we've discovered that we can connotate. But there's obviously there's another element here.
I absolutely agree. And as a person who is very interested in science, I always find it even disrespectful to the nature of the universe
Yeah,
to
yeah,
to put the limits on things that
totally.
it's such an egoistical way, because we're doing this sort of labeling,
Yeah,
presuming that we know everything and that we understand anything. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. We're
Which
just guests. You know what I mean?
exactly. And there's so many things out there that our consciousness is just not capable of perceiving, which is fine. We're
Yeah,
just a tiny
yeah,
break in the universe. So
yeah, man. That's part of the fun.
exactly, exactly.